usually starts the meeting if there's no chair?
It's the first I've ever been at where there is no chair, so we could, I would suggest, and I think we're perfectly safe doing this because it's being broadcast and everything else, that you maybe go through the new committee individually, introduce yourselves with your background, do the introduction thing first to get to know each other, and then, hey, okay, now we're gonna move on to electing officers.
Yeah.
You know, based on your conversation and who would like to be president, and just like as if we were in grade school again or something like
Yeah.
that or whatever.
Are y'all okay with starting it that way?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, we'll just start at this end and then take your time, as much information or as little as you like to share, and then we'll just move on from there.
Okay, Lauren Pfieffer. I have lived in the area since 2020. I live up on Parrot Mountain, and my exposure to CPRD and the trails started with the Crystal Riley Park. And, you know, sitting here over the last couple of years, just learning about the work of CPRD and what it takes to keep all this going, and the volunteers and that it takes to keep it going. And I was interested in being on the Trails Committee, so
Can you guys get the microphones closer to you guys?
yep.
Keep it like 5 inches or less.
So I think, and again, I'm just, first. So I think what I would like to accomplish as part of this committee, and I'm interested as to whether you all share it as well. And I know Brian and Matt were saying, what do we want to accomplish? But I sort of want to know, based on board and Brian, your experience and history with trails and in the different areas that we live, like what, I'm sure there's a lot of input as to what the public would like us to do and prioritize. And I think it would be important to get that feedback. And I would just really like us to get stuff done. Like really look back, 6 months from now or a year from now and feel good about what we've been able to accomplish and prioritize and work through some important things that need to be done to preserve our parks, to make them more accessible to everybody, to get the word out so that we just preserve what we have already. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm Danna Kemp, and I also live on Parrot Mountain. I'm a long resident of Newburgh, 50 plus years, and grew up with Chehalem Park and Rec, and my kids also through the Park and Rec park, swimming pool, etc. I've worked on the Crystal Riley Park. I was one of the board members and transitioned that park to the Park and Rec. So that was really when I started to work closely with Chehalem Park and Rec. I'd like to see, kind of echo what Lauren had said, where I really kind of want to know what's the board like us to do, again, with the public and what their view is also. I would love, since I know most of the parks, but it's been quite a while since I've been to them, I would love for us to organize a field trip just to learn more about each park, and learn also about what's kind of on the plate for the board as far as some of the trails like the bypass trail and some of these things. Maybe there's time frames that are more important than others, and just continue that work.
Excuse me, my name is Bob Freshman, and we live up on Parrot Mountain. We've lived there for 24 plus years now. And I've been involved in a number of things in the community over the years we've lived here and enjoy doing things to try to give back to the community. But we were lucky way back in 2000 that we had the opportunity of meeting Bob and Crystal Riley, and they invited us to come and ride and hike on their land. In fact, Bob saw my wife riding by on her horse in the street, called her over and said, "You gals shouldn't be riding on the street, it's not safe, you ride on our property." So they've been gracious and very generous about letting the property be used. And we've gone through that with the foundation that was set up after Crystal died. And then, of course, into the transition to CPRD. I'm a avid user of Bob and Crystal Riley Park. I'm up there pretty much daily. And it's to me, it's just a great treasure to have and enjoy it greatly. But I also, like you mentioned, would like to get to know some of the other parks. I really am only familiar with Bob and Crystal Riley and the trail around the golf course. And that's pretty much it. And I know there's a lot of others that I think it'd be great to do like if we can go as a group or individually, whatever, and really understand the rest of the trails. And the other thing I would love to encourage and foster is a volunteerism. I think that's a great resource to draw on. In things I've been involved with before, volunteers have been really a very important part of getting things done. So I'd love to see that progress and grow and come up with some sort of a structure to really encourage, reward, acknowledge volunteers for what they do. So, and to answer your question earlier, I'd love to see trails increase in general. I think they're a great asset. It gets people out. It's just, we're very lucky in this area to have the trails we have. So I really am very, thankful for that.
I'm Sarah Downing. I've lived in Newburgh for just about 2 years now. I use our trails as a hiker, and I work for Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation Department. I'm a business analyst for them, so I've got a very indoor job. But I do support trails, love walking around here. I echo kind of what I've heard so far down the line is I would love to see us be able to get things done, and whether that's by supporting what the staff and the board need help with as related to trails. The survey that was done by the last committee was pretty extensive and has some really nice action points at the end of that. And you always hear people say the worst thing you can do is survey people and then do nothing with it. So taking that information and maybe having that be part of what sets the goals for this group, I think would be lovely. And I also want to really activate our trails. I think volunteerism, just like Bob said, is one of the ways to do that. Programming is another way. Even just wayfinding in different ways is a way to do that. And having folks know that not just Bob and Crystal Riley Park is available, which is probably the highlight of the trail system, but there's trails at Ewing Young, there's trails at the golf course. How are the folks throughout Newburgh and Dundee accessing all the different trails that we have? And is it easy for them to access and feel confident that they can go out there and have a really nice moment in nature, have a really nice dog walk, whatever their purpose is, that they can find the trail to do that within the system.
My name is Dennis Wiley. I recently retired from Oregon State Parks after 35 years. I started at Shampoo as historian and then became the department's first interpretive coordinator. So I had kind of a statewide responsibilities. Then I had the good fortune of going back to Shampoo as the manager. I was there from 1997 to 2007 as manager. And then I was the Willamette Valley District Manager, so I oversaw the managers throughout the Willamette Valley. So a lot of extensive experience with lots of trails like Silver Falls and the Water Trail. And then from 2017 to 2022, I was the project manager for the Salmonberry Trail, the proposed trail from Banks to the coast along the old Port of Tillamook Bay's Railroad. So I retired and I walk at Ewing Young Park every day, so that's sort of my local park. And when I saw the opportunity that there was a trail committee, I thought, well, that makes sense, that I should probably get involved with something like that. I echo what Sarah is saying. I'd really be interested in following up on the survey. It was really an amazing job. I'd love to see maybe a presentation on that. And then also hear from the board, what are the board's priorities right now with trails? What are they envisioning in the future, and how can this committee, help put some legs under that and make that happen?
I have nothing to say. You all say it for me. Hi, good evening. Sorry for 1 minute late. My name is Sukheenai. I've been living here in Newburgh since 1999 one of the longtime residents. So this kind of the hidden agenda, hidden dream. When I moved here to Newburgh, I live up on the mountain, on Chehalem Mountain, the other side of Parrot Mountain. I have no clue about where the parks are. So when I happen to have a baby, I have no idea where to go to find parks in Newburgh. And I always have to drive to Tualatin or Beaverton. So this has been in my head. Part of besides that, I also volunteer with the Chamber of Commerce, currently at a government affair. And we heard a lot more about the communities who are members of Chambers of Commerce, that we have to agree that our town is become more famous because of the wine industry, and people who come here to build the economies to our city of Newburgh and including Dundee, they ask what more they can do, not only just come to drink wine. So there has been conversation coming on that they need more trails. I don't know if we need to add more trails. I think we have enough trails from what I understand in Newburgh. So just like everyone said, to preserve, to maintain, use the survey, and do our best. What's sparking me to be joined this trail committee, because I got opportunity to attend the meeting a year ago talking about Bob and Riley Park, and it was dawned on me that, wow, there are 3 groups, and seems like we could not agree. So I just thought that, there should be a way for us to agree and using the, the last trail board meeting survey and see that could happen. And that could be a good thing for us. And, just like everyone say, get everything done, get the public comment, and make it move forward, and everyone enjoy.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That blows me away, the experience that's up there and everybody's passion. That's fantastic for our district.
Well, there's 3 positions. There's chair, vice chair, and secretary. Secretary, of course, responsible for taking notes. And then the chair will open the meeting, kind of work on the agenda with staff, and then direct the meeting. And then the vice, will fill in as backup primarily. So we have 6 of the 7 members here. It looks like it's Jake Jendusa is the only one who didn't make it. So I'm sure he'll make the next one. So I guess now we'll kind of just leave it up to you all. Obviously we're following the Robert's Rules of Order and so forth, but we can start with kind of an open discussion, one at a time. If anyone wants to nominate someone, if anyone wants to nominate themselves or indicate that they have interest in the position, this is your committee, and you'll start shaping it now. So
I'd like to nominate Dennis Wiley to be a chair based on his experience at Champui, has 20 years in State Park. And he's quiet, so that's I like. To be a chair, so we can talk.
do you accept that nomination?
Well, I'd like to hear if there's other nominations.
Okay.
Sure, I'll accept that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other nominations, or do you guys want to discuss? Or vote, or, if there's no other nominations. Everyone agrees?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are, I've been told, so I know this sounds kind of weird, but we're supposed to take a formal roll call because this is a public meeting and under Robert's rules. So everyone has to either clearly raise their hand and say, I vote yes, or no, or we can, and eventually the secretary can do this if they like, take a roll call by name. So however you guys would like raise your hand and I'll say yes, is that, okay.
Yes?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes,
and what, you're saying yes on is, the motion to nominate
Dennis Wiley.
Dennis Wiley as chair.
As chair.
So if one of you wants to say that, and then make sure that we're on the record.
I move
what is
to
the language
nominate Ed
again?
Wiley as chair.
Okay,
I second.
okay, so we'll have a nomination, we have three here, but, we have a nomination and an other second. And then, you can, all those in favor of the nomination,
Say aye.
say
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
raise your hand, make sure, okay? It's unanimous, so.
Unanimous is about as you can get.
Yeah,
And he's not mad at me.
Done,
so
there's
that's
one.
good.
yeah. So, so what we'll have you do is, if you wanna sit in the middle, just trade chairs, and then you get the gavel.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So now you get to take over the meeting and run it from here on out, for the next two positions, so you guys will do, the vice chair and the secretary positions.
All right, do I have any nominations for vice chair of the committee? Do I have any volunteers for vice chair of the committee?
I'll volunteer. Lauren.
Do I have
A second.
a second? All in favor? Lauren being vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
So be it's passed.
There you go.
So,
Secretary.
secretary.
Yep.
Do we have any nominations for secretary of the committee? Do we have any volunteers for secretary of the committee?
No, is it taking note, right? If you want me to take note, I will take the note I want to write. No, I'm not, I'm gonna pass for this, yeah. And I'm not, never done it before. So what about you, Sarah?
I'm happy to do it.
Thank
All
you.
right, Sarah. All in favor of Sarah being secretary of the committee, say aye.
Aye.
So moved. I guess the next point we talk about maybe, is this a good day and time for our, these are monthly meetings, is that correct?
Typically, they're monthly, and they can take months off, you know, in the holidays, sometimes November's taken off. The board sometimes will take, July off, but it can kind of fit your schedule, and what topics you guys have, right? So,
You generally wanna obviously discuss amongst your group that you have a quorum whenever, when you do have meetings, so everybody's scheduled, like Matt said, are gonna be, we all have lives outside of here, of course, and so keep that in mind. As far as staff is concerned and the day of the week, you just don't wanna conflict with, I think golf had their meeting last night, the golf committee, advisory committee. And then there's this group, so other than, what text today, Tuesday? Yeah, other than Mondays, the week is open and you probably don't wanna do Fridays, so, whatever.
and then of course, the last Thursday is typically
board meeting.
CPRD's board meeting, so you wanna avoid that.
Does
Except
this work
for
for you,
December.
Tuesdays, Matt? Cause will you attend every meeting?
I'm supposed to,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will do my best, so. But, luckily you have 6 of the 7 here, so you guys can discuss what does work the best for your schedules. And then you'll want to have some sort of mechanism to remind each other, report back to that reply all email. So if someone can't attend or they can't attend, you know if you have a quorum. The worst thing you wanna do is if fewer than a quorum show up, and a quorum's 4, right? Quorum's 4, so if only 3 of you show up and you have 4 missing, obviously that's not, productive, so probably the group email chain is, on attendance, if anyone's gonna miss, might be important, so,
On that note, it has happened in the past with other committees that they don't have a quorum. And say your regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. You would let everybody know that, hey, unfortunately, right up to the deadline, we know we're not gonna have a quorum. So you notify staff ahead of time, the CPRD, as well as obviously the group. And then it's publicly noted that, we didn't have a meeting.
Okay.
Something I keep in mind too is, I'm totally open to, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. But as long as you're consistent, that really helps staff. Because besides Richard and myself, so we can schedule to make sure you're gonna get in the building and we're here, and then it's recorded. So that helps a lot too.
So no Monday, it's Tuesday to Friday, right?
Right, Monday would be a conflict. The other group uses this room due to the logistics of the public meeting set up here. So no Monday, and I'd probably stay away from Thursdays
Yeah.
at the board.
Did Tuesday seem to work for the
Yeah,
group?
yeah.
Okay.
It works.
Next month, of course, is December, which is always challenging. Do we want to try to do a meeting in December? If so, it'd probably be early.
typically, the committees will take December off.
Okay.
You don't have to though. Or is it November off that they usually take? Of course, we're here in November, so,
Right.
so getting this, the first meeting in. So if you want to take December off, and there's a lot of conflicting issues with, the holidays, I can tell you our CPRD board meeting is the first week of December.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a special meeting the second week, so we have board meetings here on the 5th and 12th. And then of course the last 2 weeks are, Christmas, and then we're going to the, New Year's, so.
Is the committee comfortable with meeting in January and not trying to pull something together in
I
December?
was only thinking of doing December just because we're just getting started.
Mhm.
And it's sort of, it seems like that would keep that momentum going initially. And I understand that that could be a problem for
So let's talk about what we would be doing at our next meeting. I'd really be interested in having kind of a presentation that, we got a lot of material that we were able to read. But if there could be a presentation either from the previous committee, sort of where they were to, like, are we handing anything off to you that you'd like to see continue to work on, or the board themselves, what did the board take from the survey, and is staff working on any action plans as a result of the survey that came in? Rather than us sort of just like spinning our wheels and dreaming of what, here's something fun to do. But it'd be nice to know if we're actually following up on, action items that are already out there. So, and that was why I was wondering if, perhaps January would be good if the board or staff had to put something together, for us.
Well, I can speak to part of that, which is, I can't speak for the whole board, other than the things we've voted on, and we have gone over priorities in some of our projects. So in terms of trails, the project that we are in right now is, what do you call it, phase 1 of the Newburgh-Dundee bypass,
That's exactly.
which includes the bridge.
Mhm.
It's the first of 4 bridges
Yes.
that would complete the entire trail system there. So that is one of our larger projects. I think the cost of the bridges has gone up significantly, of course, with inflation and building costs. So right now we're committed to the first phase of that. I think the bridge is something like $4 million now. And
You said there were 3 bridges?
I think there's 4 total.
4?
And so that trail system, and everyone mentioned field trip, and I love the idea of field trip, and I want to go on one too. So Brian, we'll have to work on a time maybe you can take us out
Absolutely.
on a field trip. But I had the miniature version. Jim took me out about a year ago, and if you go back where the bridge is for the current Newburgh-Dundee bypass, it's where they're doing a lot of the new homes, the up and out homes over by what will become the new River District. And if you go from there, and you kind of have to do this visually, all the way to the Dundee Elementary School, the new Dundee Elementary School that's out there, kind of in the farm area, right before the river, what you see is a trail system following that Newburgh-Dundee bypass bridge, all the way to, I think it terminates somewhere around Fred Meyer. Does that sound right? So gives them, hikers, walkers, pedestrians, someone commuting on a bicycle, the ability to not go on Highway 99 at all, right? Bypass all the traffic, the congestion, honestly the risks, associated with being a pedestrian in that area. So that is one of our largest trail projects that we're doing right now, and it's a slow one because there's federal monies involved with it, ODOT money, a lot of grants, which are good, but then with the grants come a lot of requirements. So they have to be handicap accessible. They're basically, it's a paved walking bridge. It's not like a trail through the woods, if that makes sense. It's like a bridge path that follows the current bridge system.
This is in the packet that are in the items that Kat posted or forwarded that are available online. This is just one of the documents, but it gives you a real general overview of where the Dundee to Newburgh
Yeah.
Dundee bypass goes. Got more copy? Yeah.
So just to put that out there, that's one of the largest trail projects that we're currently working on. Another kind of pending trail project is Ewing Young. Has everyone been out to Ewing Young Park? No, yes?
Yes.
About half of our group. So it's just past Rennie Field. It's on, what's the creek? Chehalem Creek, which seems like a river during this time of year. I mean, it's a significant body of water.
Certain parts, it gets pretty fast.
And this park, it's a multi-use park. So you have a dog park, off-leash dog park. You have the skate park, BMX, and then you have the kind of open green area in the middle, and that is disc golf. And then there's a trail around it. And it's really kind of an incredible trail because you're just a couple blocks outside of town and you feel like you're out in the wild. And we own another 10 acres on the other side of that creek that's currently landlocked and inaccessible. At some point in the future, pending some land use stuff that you don't want to get all into that, but at some point in the future we will likely have a bridge to create a walking trail on the other side of that. So it would be,
So I actually would like
the
to
idea
get
is a
into
double
that.
loop, right?
Right, it'd be a double loop, and we could add some more
So-
holes of disc golf, of
Yeah.
course.
So I understand the
Yeah.
Luba case was withdrawn.
Right. We're pursuing an alternate course. The board had the legal counsel look into an alternate course of action outside of the land use appeal process. And the attorney believes, after discussing with the county planner and the commissioners, that they can work together to get a conditional approval for the bridge. So we don't have a time frame for it, but it is something that at some point it will be a project that is likely to move forward.
And
Yeah.
how this Yuen Yang Park being funded? The CPRD funded to the taxes or what?
It would just be part of a mixture of general fund and I think there was SDC money as well.
Sure,
Yeah.
that might apply down there based on what we're, you know, maybe to help build a bridge, you know, and stuff like that, SDCs could be used.
Yeah.
If I'm not speaking out of turn.
No.
And it would be, part of our just, general fund improvement, you know, make it a priority and, hey, we're gonna improve this part of the trail. We're gonna, you know, add the disc golf holes over there and just cool stuff that the community comes up with.
Yeah.
Do you have it estimated how much will it cost?
No studies have been done for
I got
that
you.
yet.
Okay.
We need to get across the river first. Or the
Because
creek.
the
The
land
creek.
is in here.
We'll cross that bridge. once-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree, yeah.
So those are a couple of the projects. I'm sure that there's a number of other ones that I might be missing, so
Right.
I'll let Brian take over.
I know for a fact that, one of the main things I've been working on, but I'm very excited for this committee to come on board and start moving forward, because, I'm gonna challenge the committee members, and I think you guys would be very open to help implement the master plan, some of the items of that up at the Bob and Crystal Riley property, especially initially with, which was a good recommendation for the master plan, of the signage package first. You know, get that established, right? And with the branding that we want, and all the wonderful stuff that comes with that. I have, one of the things I've taken the lead on is, I've reached out to, you know, like rock art signs or whatever, we're big in that industry, and I'm getting some quotes on the initial, like sign markers and stuff like that and posts that we would need, and what kind of bulk rates we could get and stuff like that, so moving forward to get some numbers, but been holding off on, you know, where we wanna go. Money is budgeted in this budget cycle that we're in right now for this package, and, so I'm excited about that.
So how do you see this committee assisting with that project?
That'd be really easy to answer, so just everyone who spoke up and talked about their experience with trails and outdoors is way above mine, and then plus your experiences of where you've gone and visited, and we've all done that, and I just a little bit, I trail a lot, but, so what would you like to see that, and what would benefit us as a community? And what's really cool is it's a clean slate, so we are starting from scratch, right, on how we wanna do this signage. You
So
know,
there's not a sign plan at this point?
Beg your pardon?
There is not a sign plan?
Not, well, there is in the master plan, there is, but there's no formal, hey, every 150 feet, we're gonna put this sign here on this particular trail, name this trail, you know, whatever. And, you know, do we want this trail to remain this type of surface, all that, but, and then do we want this kind of kiosk, and where do we want trailhead signs? What exact signs do we want to say, what kind of verbiage? You know, all of that you see at Shampooey and everywhere else, and in every state park or whatnot, we have that opportunity to create that up there with that, whatever branding we decide to use.
And I'll jump in on that. I know the prior Trails Committee started working on that, as well as
Absolutely.
trail cleanup days, a lot of volunteer efforts up there. Those are things that if you ask what does the board look for, we love that kind of, the committee sort of is a pipeline for volunteerism throughout the whole district. So you guys are like, you know, the front line. And then the trail mapping, I think, was also a big part of what the prior committee did, which is very important in a trail system like Bob and Crystal Riley. I know I hike it a lot, and one time I kind of got myself a little confused, and I'm opening up my GPS. I'm like, where am I going here? And I ended up walking through a field or something, and probably did, you know. But you know, Bob, you had mentioned, and actually I think you put together a PowerPoint a few months back with your experience in another trail system, having color-coded, real simple color-coded.
It was just things that when I presented to the board a few months ago,
Yeah.
that we had seen at other parks that were very intuitive, very easy to follow. One system was color-coded trails, but rather than go into detail now,
Yeah.
it was things that somebody who has never been to the park could successfully negotiate, know where they're going, how far they're going, and even indicate, say, the difficulty of the trail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in fact, the two best examples I've seen are in British Columbia, in hiking I've done up there. But I'll be glad to share that with Brian
Yes.
and go through. I took lots of pictures and did put together a PowerPoint on that. But there are obviously other ways. This was just something that struck us as so darn easy
Yeah.
to use.
And I
And,
think,
and also there was a safety factor built in where each trail junction had a number. And that corresponded to numbers on the big trail map. So if there was an emergency that needed response to come in, how are you gonna possibly describe where you are in the trails? You say, I'm at junction 34, they could find you without any problem. So these are just things that I saw that made a lot of sense.
and I think just back to what we were saying about getting public input in all the discussion about the master plan for Bob and Crystal Riley, that was one thing that was at the top of the list, was signage and better maps, because I honestly think that some people are intimidated to go there because they don't wanna get lost, or they don't know where to start, or, you know, they don't know how difficult it is, cause that west side can be.
When I
Tricky.
opened the master plan, I was totally intimidated.
There's one trail on the west side that can be very challenging.
Is, yeah, and if you get started, there's no way.
Just the
There's no way
volume
out.
was just, that's gonna be challenging, even color coding, I think. That's a very complicated system.
But they did this used actually on the maps, and each junction had a small map. They would say steep section, actually indicated. You can do something like a 1 to 5 difficulty level. There's
Or a ski hill, a
obviously
green,
different ways
blue, black,
Mhm.
yeah.
of doing it, but just something that would be, you know, if say a family's there with small kids, do they wanna take the most difficult section or something easier? And how far from one junction to the next?
It's important.
Yeah,
And-
So I
and
think-
where you are.
from a public input perspective, that getting better signage and maps up there would be well received.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that was always it's kind of a no-brainer thing, but it was kind of the cart before the horse that, hey, here's this park, now people discovered it, so they're out there, you know, using it, cause it's a wonderful asset. But until the master plan was done
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
approved, to be able to move forward and to do it right, and, you know,
Totally.
and the budget for it is, we're at that point now, so that's the exciting part. And then to your point, everybody was saying, yeah, you cannot over-sign it, and you should make it that from a 6-year-old to a 96-year-old, they're comfortable anywhere on those trails, and also keeping in mind with people of all abilities. I think it is super important. So if I pull up in my cane or my walker, or my granddaughter in a wheelchair, hey, can I access these trails? There's quite a few of them you can, but how far out can I go? So it doesn't have to be ADA per se, I just need to know, and then as the trails are developed, and they're quite developed right now, what obstacles lie out there and such or whatever, but hey, I know I can get wherever, but at least I know how far it is and where I can go, and I can choose to do whatever,
Yeah.
but, so that signage is gonna be wonderful.
Brian,
And-
I know you mentioned that there's funding in this year's budget for this,
Not to complete the master plan per se, I don't wanna.
but no, for this,
But,
for
I mean,
this
we could
signage.
put a big dent in that sign package and kiosks and stuff like
Is there a
that.
deadline that you're working toward?
You know, we'll all hands make.
Okay.
So it's me, one individual going through this who, you know, doesn't have all that wealth of experience, but it's doable because of this master plan that was put together and, the work that was done by the past group and Quentin Cummings and how he laid out these maps. We have a real good palette to go on. And then with the experience up there at those tables, things like, you know, what names do we wanna do, or hey, Brian, this is where these junctions come together, and we definitely should sign this accordingly and all that, not just by the basic parameters of, you know, one sign marker every 150 yards or whatever. And so that is very important, so that'd be very helpful, so if you don't mind, would be you know, people that wanna step up and say, hey, I'd love to help put that sign package together with you, and we could coordinate a time that's, you know, convenient for you, and I would gladly work with that and appreciate that, and that would help expedite it.
I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
fantastic, you know, anytime.
What's the budget cycle, Brian, and do we lose it if we
So I'm
don't?
starting, no, well, it becomes a new budget next June 30th, or July 1st.
Okay.
Between now and July 1st,
Okay.
there's say $20-some-odd thousand I set aside, I didn't set aside, is in a line item for signs.
Okay.
And it was earmarked pretty much in my mind for the largest unsigned. Don't get me wrong, Ewing Young needs the same love and attention, but we could start with the branding and how, our knowledge of how we're gonna sign on a larger scale up there, then we can flex right down to the Getman Trail, Ewing Young, and whatnot, and I think it'd be wonderful. And that would really, just anybody that comes to our town, which is a wonderful idea, and they're looking for other stuff to do, put our trails on the map per se, of hey, they've got some really, you know, well-marked trails here.
And that's exactly what your experience and your input, and then you speaking with other people that you know use these trails, people that use other trails, other places, like, well, Bob's bringing in ideas, I mean, from another country, right? And they're doing it really well, right? That's where you guys can help so much, because staff needs it.
Oh,
I mean, we're a little bit understaffed. We lost one of our trail maker up on Riley Park. So we need all the help and all the ideas we can get. And if you come up with something that can be enacted, a policy perspective, you bring it to the board, and that's where we can say, hey, we like this. We like the idea of universal signage or a system that works throughout all of our trail system. Because a lot of these trails eventually are meant to be connected anyways, right? So having that kind of compatibility from trail to trail makes a lot of sense. So those are the types of things I think help. Now, outside of Riley, Ewing Young, and the bypass, are there any other trails, anything we're actively working on or kind of on the agenda that's been,
You have Getman and Shad Park,
yeah,
you know, that are greatly, Getman is probably the most popular,
Yeah.
believe it or not, trail
Yeah.
in the count, or for us, in the district,
mm-hmm.
because it's more well-known and it is where it is, surrounded by neighborhoods, and you do get that change of microclimate and everything, you know, you're in different environments, it's very unique. And that will continue to, part of what we're doing is, as we develop the next 9 as the crow flies to Wilsonville Road from where the golf course is, that trail extends, the Getman Trail will extend all the way over to, around the next 9 to Wilsonville Road, and that's where we own all that property, of course, and that's where I have a greenhouse grow operation that we're able to grow all the perennials and annuals and such over there also, and natives and trees, and so we have opportunities for adding stuff to trails, you know, in terms of horticulture aspect of that, so that's a cool thing. But that trail will be expanding. The shot one, as I mentioned, or whatever. We did open up a year ago, last January, we had extensive storm damage at Spring Meadow Park that we own, that you guys own. And it's right next to the new development at Crestview Crossing. That park that's adjacent to there's, I don't know, it's a couple acres of forest land. It was just a stand of fir that was right there with some native underbrush in that. We had some large firs fall down during that extensive storm we had. Russ and staff, and we all went in there and cleaned that up. That is now a nice little plot, but that trail can be a trail. It is now, you know, it's gonna be what you would call a neighborhood type trail or whatever, but it does go from grass in a park and playground to all of a sudden you're in a solid woodland area there of native, so it's really cool. Something that minor. And other than that, no, I don't know. Oh, in Dundee, we will have, it's not really technically a trail, but the Saunders property that we are developing there on 9 acres it's gonna be, it's like a mini Oregon garden. It's something that I've been doing this for a long time, getting ready to go, and we're gonna be breaking ground on that, you know, probably next fall or whatever.
And where was that, Brian?
And it's right as you hang at the light in Dundee, if you hang it right by the school right there, right by the post office on the left, all that bare land that
Okay.
used to be walnuts and hazelnuts that Jan Sanders and her father maintained forever and ever. That is gonna be developed into a park or whatever. And
There's a
it's-
farmhouse there,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
blue
the barn
farmhouse,
stays,
yeah,
and a collective
barn
barn stays, but
Mhm.
it's literally gonna be planted, just, you know, hundreds if not thousands of tree shrubs and, you know, whatever. But, and I envision, it's actually designed where you have your northwest garden, and then you'll have your conifer garden, and then maybe a Japanese, and then your edible gardens. But there's a trail that'll go, it'll be paved, so it definitely all abilities, and, yeah, so that's gonna be really cool, and that's right across from, the park, Village Park that's on the other side too that we own, that a lot of people walk every day. So I get a lot of comments that, to them, they're trail walkers, but and that's kind of the interesting thing too with, we think of trails, it's all surfaces, right? So it could be, I think trail, and probably most people in this room, you get out in the great outdoors, you're in the forest, but we have a lot of, quote, trails in parks themselves that people use. And they're quite proud, Jacobite Park is
Yeah.
very, people put miles every day on that, you know, and just walking around and, you know, and you can get a good workout that way, and the same thing in Dundee, they do that at Village Park.
Mhm. And I can say from the board perspective, Sanders Park is one of our top priorities. We had a donation, as he stated, from the family. And so we're really trying to live up to our promises to them, which is, yes, we will move forward, we will preserve your land, preserve the farmhouse. We also have grants, and they have time restrictions on them, so our hope as a board has been to get that ground broken there, I think by spring, if we can. I think we'll get an update of some sort on that, potentially at our upcoming meeting from our project planner. So, that's one, and then a really, really long distance thing to think about, but it is a trail related, definitely is our property on 219. We have about 100 acres on 219. The tentative plan is to someday put a campground in there, similar to Champui, I guess, much smaller scale. It's right on the river there. Right now, there's a number of reasons we can't do much with it. Mostly, it's almost impossible to access. It's right past the bridge, where the bridge coming from St. Paul to Newburgh merges into one lane. There's a little gravel road where the farmers access it that goes down this way. So if you can imagine, like, the traffic change there would be pretty drastic. But there's other things to think about. Throwing this out there just so everyone knows, like, you know, this could be a 20-year thing, 5-year, 10-year, we don't know. But there's also land in between current Newburgh city limits and that park that potentially could come into the urban growth boundary, could be developed at some point. And if that did occur, there might be an alternate route in from maybe Wilsonville Road or something like that. So we're always working with the city and the city planner. And those folks, you know, if they do bring that in, it would likely be industrial, they're saying, but it's all rumor at this point. But we're, you know, keeping our ear to the ground on that, because that piece of land I've toured, and that could be pretty incredible, you know, little trails within it.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a mix of dense forest, open, clear cut, I mean, a lot of things.
It's a super unique project. It came to be with the mitigation of phase 3, I guess it was, when the initial bypass went in.
Yeah.
They had to mitigate, and there's 96 acres down there, the water, that ODOT came in, it was one of the first plans they ever stepped back, and instead of just, okay, here's our mitigation land or whatever, they went through the process of designing upland prairie, native swamp, you know, all the different areas in Newburgh, and because that topography over there is that way. It starts at a plateau, and then we end up down in a watershed, and the whole works, and they planted and maintained it for 4 years, and continued to plant that, and then they granted it to CPRD. And so the roads were put in, it was maintained, they had water rights, they irrigated. It's beautiful land, a little bit of everything down there. It's an upper plateau, you can have hookups up there, like you see in the latest one that you go into Dundee. And then, as you go down below, you could have your primitive camping, yurts and stuff like that. You could have disc golf, the trails around the side, river access. I mean, you could, it's pretty calm right there too, kayaking, whatever.
And then last but not least, our district used to rent or lease land, and we ran a paddle launch outside of Dundee. I used it way back when. It was really fun. And we want to reinstate a paddle launch, and the Trails Committee would be the committee that would have input on that as well. We've kind of toyed with some ideas of trying to bring that back. We've reached out to the same property owners that we previously leased from. It doesn't look like as of now that's, I don't know if you've heard anything new on that.
No, there's, a couple families that own pretty much all the big plots of land in Dundee, and the Edwards family happens to be one of them. And it's possible, but see, they're in no hurry, they're land wealthy as well as, I guess, cash wealthy or whatever. They don't need to develop anything right away or whatever, so they're in no hurry. But there's an opportunity, we own 4 acres right past the new school, and past the bridge that goes by the new school in Dundee, over the bypass, that we could do a land, that is prime land for development, if they, cause they own all the other land right around there, the flat developable land by the school, and that's obviously very popular now that the school's built. It's a prime area that they could develop land. That possibly do a land swap or something, that we could have that, cause the road's improved to about 80% to where the paddle launch was, and it's just gravel. But that we could maybe have that land back again. And then there's talks of, I'm working with, I was fortunate enough that Katie at Taste Newburgh, it's no O in there, and Travel Oregon has a grant program that they have going right now. It's $100,000, non-matching, that the city of Newburgh and Katie, she reached out to the city of Newburgh and CPRD, and she's taking the lead on that, and we are part of the steering committee that to go after that grant money, and that would fund feasibility to how to get a trail from there, or it's about having trails on the waterfront. So for instance, the campground property we talked about, if we could go from Rogers Landing all the way to that campground property, or you could go from Rogers Landing all the way up to Dundee. Doing studies like that, because there's certain stakeholders, of course, along the river, but it could be a private owner, could be the city, could be CPRD, whatever. But, so that's really exciting. It could be years down the road, but just the idea that there's a different groups that have approached the park district and said, hey, let us take the lead, and, because tourism, right? So that's a big deal, and that's a big, powerful engine there. So that could be something exciting on the horizon too, to help trails in Newburgh.
Well, and I guess I shouldn't have said our last thing on the paddle launch, cause that makes me think about the river. Newburgh is going to be developing on the river. That's gonna be huge. When it happens, what the exact time frame is, we don't know. We will partner with Newburgh and any developer. Obviously, riverfront can't be developed, it has to be back, a few hundred feet or past the floodplain. So it's undevelopable land. Typically, that type of land, when you see in other cities like Westland and others, you have parks or trails along the river. So, there's been developers talking about land out that way that also may work for an area for a paddle launch. But when it gets developed, we don't know that. That's an economic thing and a city thing and so on and so forth. So, I guess there's a lot to think about in terms of what is like right now, what's pressing. The most pressing thing is probably Riley Park. We don't have signage. It needs more development, more ideas on trails. I think the Newburgh Dundee bypass, that's something we need to take a field trip and go out there and take a look at it and really kind of visualize what's happening. And then what role the trail committee, it's gonna be what's the term? I mean, it's a paved it's like a trail that's almost like a road, kind of,
Sure.
in some sense, so,
It's like a Banks Vernonia type trail, but you know, right
Yeah.
along the highway per
Yeah.
se.
yeah. So it won't be like the hiking wilderness trail that
Yeah.
we have at Crystal Riley. So that's kind of throwing a little bit of everything out there, so you guys
Okay.
can think of a reason to have a meeting.
Okay, well, speaking of that, we've got just a couple minutes left. Let's look at a date for the December meeting that would work. It'd
Okay.
probably be early in the month, I expect.
When you're looking up, so Brian, on the Dundee Park, that on the Sonder property, it's pretty much all done, right? Because you already have plans set to create the mini
Right.
Oregon garden, which has become a cheerleader to
Yes.
supporting you, that's it, okay. Just want to clarify on that.
How about December 10th? Will that,
That would work for me.
Can you do like 17 or something like that? Is that too?
and we know we can't always make the meetings, but, so let's look at
10 at 6 p.m.?
6 PM again.
Yeah.
Okay. I will make it happen.
And let's just, real quick, what we'd like to see on the agenda. It sounds like the Crystal Riley Park, it sounds like
Signage.
it's something we may want to be looking at. I'd be real interested if you'd be willing to, I know you gave a presentation to the board, but to kind of, could you give a presentation to us as well?
Absolutely.
So Bob will do his presentation.
I like to hear, you know, like a former trail meeting, give some ideas.
Excuse me, could you repeat
I
that?
want to hear, you know, the former.
Would you be
trail
willing to
meeting.
come and just give us a brief
Sure.
report on your committee and?
How much time do you have?
Bob, how much time do you need for your presentation?
You mean, oh, just maybe the most 10 minutes.
Okay, with discussion. And it's Bob, right?
Alan.
I
Alan.
apologize.
Okay. And your last name?
Holstein, like the cow.
How much time would you like?
Um,
Because we'll be asking questions, I'm sure.
I was being facetious, but 10 minutes, 10, 15 would do it.
Okay. I think between those two things and questions we're probably gonna have for both of you in discussion, that's probably enough for the agenda at this point, unless someone else has something they'd like to.
The one
as
other
well.
thing that folks did mention that you might wanna talk about is the field trip, so taking the
Yeah.
committee out.
Or set up a
and
field
if I could
trip.
come too, I'd love to come. That will be something very contingent on schedules, so probably, I'm guessing after the holidays. would-
Yeah, and just so, speaking of schedules, just FYI, and it shouldn't affect any decisions you're making here, I am at a school with a interagency, noxious weed and symposium or whatever, so sexy as that is, on the 10th, I will not be here,
Okay.
so just.
Okay.
Be great information.
So we're also then, look at trying to set up the field trip at that next meeting as well for sometime in January.
And what we could potentially do is have Kat check with staff, with you and whoever else you may want to come. And then send out the doodle thing where we can all vote on availability once she has the dates
For a field trip.
for a field trip.
Okay.
If you want
No,
to
that
do
sounds
that, I
good,
can-
because we're one
So are we
staff.
talking about the bypass field trip or?
No, this would be
The
a
whole
field
thing.
trip of our trail system.
So we'll
Yeah.
just
So
try
you're
to
familiar.
tackle
That would
it
be terrific.
You
all
know, as
spend it.
efficiently as possible.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
So everyone at least knows what are we talking about, which park, which trail.
We'll
And
pile
that'll
up
be
on
a-
us or whatever, or we can agree to meet somewhere, whatever, we'll have.
that'll be in January.
Probably-
You guys can
probably.
decide, you know, in
Yes.
terms of, maybe start there, what you guys
Yeah,
think would be, and I think after the, you know, first of the year, the calendars are open quite a bit, so.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'll be the, you know, kinda like Matt mentioned, the steer behind that, so I'm very flexible.
So-
after the
so-
first of the year.
so Jason is not going to be coming
No,
to the
he
meetings.
is
Okay.
not on the liaison
Okay.
of this committee.
Have you been up to Crystal Riley?
I have not, and I've been wanting to get up
Yeah,
there.
so,
We could
Danna
take a
and
day up there.
Bob, I think-
Yeah.
I will take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we could,
And we could do multiple field trips too.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, this,
Yeah.
it's a committee, this is fun, we're the park district.
Well, in some of this is self-study, right? So some
Right.
of this is, if
Right.
you're gonna plan on going for a hike, do one of these, you
Yeah.
know, and it's fun and you're gonna learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get lost up at Riley Park, you'll be like, oh, we need
We
these
need
damn signs,
signage.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
but,
honestly, I was intimidated when I looked at
Oh.
the number of loops that you had in there.
Oh,
I
yeah,
couldn't
it's-
imagine a
it's
family
crazy.
going up there
Mhm.
and not getting lost.
Yeah,
There's nothing that
So-
says that you can't, we did this with the trails group I belong with in the state, that you could have a meeting on one of your field trip days.
yeah, that's what I
You
was
know,
gonna
I mean,
suggest, maybe
It could be
Crystal
up
Riley.
there, and it could be at the, you know, whatever.
Mhm.
If we could fit it in before the 10th, which I don't know if we could, but just, and not to hike the whole park, but Bob
Right.
could be the guide for sure, and we could just, like on the west side, Bob just walk the field and everyone could get a
Right.
sense of what's below.
Yeah,
And then on the east side,
I think there's 13 or 14 miles of trails
Mhm.
yeah.
between both sides.
Yeah, that's
It's
a lot.
pretty extensive.
But we probably don't wanna walk the west with, now,
It's too
with
wet.
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too
it's
wet
too
and
wet,
too
but
steep.
everyone could get a sense of, those who haven't been there, what we're talking about.
well, maybe we could look at that as
Yeah,
our
pretty
January
busy
meeting.
during the
We'll
day for
set
the
the
month
next
of
meeting and do
December.
it up there.
Yeah.
Until the
Mhm.
15th, so
Is,
if we can
is
do
the
it
house
later.
available for us to meet
We
in?
can do it on a weekend.
Yeah, that would be
I'll
great.
have to- I'll have
We
to
can-
ask, our caretaker's in the house right now,
Oh, okay.
so,
Yeah.
but I can provide facilities that we could have something.
Or say, what about the field kitchen? Could we meet in the field
Right,
kitchen?
exactly, so there is that,
Okay,
Yeah.
there's space there. and
well, we'll
there I can
discuss
just have
that,
the
and
elements.
then get, the next meeting where you get a little more orientation, get sort of a sense of where we wanna go, and then
Great.
we start filling in
Okay.
those pieces.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, with that, I think we're adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.